All right. I don't need to confirm for my listeners anymore because I know who we got on the phone. But if you don't mind saying hello, we got MC Catty Cat here. Say hello, my friend.
Beep beep. Original Catty Cat passing through. What's going on, Massive and Crew? How you been?
I love this, man. You know, I was just listening to if you remember, we did a CD together over 10 years ago. I did a mix compilation, and you helped me out. You and Marcus and Dave the Nemesis did a few songs for it. Do you remember that?
Right. Yeah, definitely, 100.
Well, I just re-released the album virtually, and it's getting a good response online. And to be honest, your lyrics that I haven't even heard in a long time, because the bit of a fuzzdo, bit of a fuzzdo, bit of a fuzzdo fight, I hear you still kick that. But the other one about the girl, you tell a story about meeting the girl. I forget the lyrics, but I'm like, I haven't heard this lyric in years. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Let me think now.
Jungle music brings the people enjoyment. That one. And then you start talking about a girl that you meet or something.
Really? I have to go and listen to that.
That's it.
That might have been something I just did off of the fly for you still.
It was awesome, man, and I feel honored that I got to work with such amazing, talented artists at such a young age. And here we are, 15 years later, still hanging out.
Well, what I would say to that is big up to everybody who were one of the artists that were involved in it first, and most importantly to big you up, because you and I already go back a very long way, and then to see you come along and do something like that, and then once again you're doing what you're doing now, and you already know how I feel about what you're doing now still, so hats off.
I appreciate that, Caddy. I appreciate all the admiration from everyone, and I was actually talking to our buddy DJ Slide recently, and he's saying the same thing, that kudos to me for doing what I'm doing. And I said, well, if it wasn't for people like you doing what you did, even you, Caddy, I remember the moment, Soundclash 2, where it was your birthday party, and I was standing at the front of the stage watching you, and I just wanted to emulate you at that point. And you guys created something that I wanted to be a part of. And since I've been invested in this scene, all I've wanted to do is do things that I can help progress our culture, our scene, get it to more ears. But you guys are the ones that planted those seeds that created this monster, if you will. So thank you, sir.
Respect. And you're absolutely not a monster. If anything at all, you might be an angel.
I thank you. I got some fun questions before we get into industry. That's how I like to do it. So
okay.
With that, I want to ask you, where's your favorite place that you've ever traveled in the world?
My favorite place? Well, I would have to definitely say the UK. When I went to England.
I remember that because you were on Drum and Bass Arena while you were over there.
Yeah, did a whole bunch of stuff over there, man. Had a heck of a time. Trust me.
Where would you say is the place that you haven't traveled that you'd like to go?
Okay. One place for sure would be Africa.
A specific place in Africa? Like, is there a specific country or?
You know what? If I could get to spend some time over there and just go around the place, I would like to. Like, if I went to Africa, I wouldn't really book a ticket with any date to really come right back, because I don't know what I'm going to get into when I get down there. Because there's so many things that I've heard about or read about that if I had the opportunity to be able to go and see it for myself, I'd love to do that.
You know, you hear these black tourist trips where you can actually go and get into the pirate range of Somalia, for instance. Would you be interested in doing something like that?
Get into the?
Like the pirating range of Somalia, where the ships are getting captured by Somalian pirates and stuff.
Oh, no. You crazy? I don't want to go anywhere where I could possibly get captured. It would be different if I hadn't lived in Canada for so long and become accustomed to our great way of life over here. You know what I mean?
For sure. I understand.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those places, because I've always thought about doing like a coastal trip around Europe, just around the Mediterranean area. And
yeah.
You wouldn't want to do that with Africa, though. You'd probably hit some coasts that aren't so friendly and welcoming, you know what I mean?
Well, that's a possibility, but in that sense, I mean, where I'd like to go is those historical places, like even places that they've mentioned in the Bible. If I could get to go to those places, I
Sure.
could see them for myself, to go where the pyramids, Egypt, all those type of places, you know what I'm saying?
You know, and I find it interesting, Caddy, because yeah, you're right. Egypt is in northeastern Africa. A lot of people, when they think the Middle East, they forget where it is, and you know, the small little portion of ocean that separates Africa into Europe. But that's the Middle East. So yeah, Egypt definitely would be something I'd love to see. Okay, let me ask you this: what was the last album or song you were listening to before you spoke to me?
Before I spoke to you, the last time I was listening to a song by a group called Bloodstone. And it's a slow song, actually. Go On and Cry, My Son. It's a song about an elder speaking to a younger that has just went through like a breakup. And basically, the elder advice is don't hold it in. Go on and cry. Let it all out. Cry until your tears are done. That's the one.
That's a deep song. And you know, it's interesting to hear you describe the music, because I don't know how many people listen to a song that aren't a lyricist and just dissect the lyrics the way you just did. And that's what shows that you're a lyricist, because you see the poetry in the song. You're not just nodding your head and feeling the beat. With that, I got to ask, how many times do you think it takes for you to listen to a song until you start to take in the lyrics? Is it the first time around, or does it take a few, do you get what I'm...
Well, it honestly depends on where I am when I'm listening to it. If I'm in a club, generally, most of the systems that are in the club don't allow quality for you to really hear word for word what somebody might be saying. So you're probably more than likely going to groove to the beat of the song and the atmosphere and the vibe that's around you. But if I'm in a place where, for instance, if I can put headphones on, as soon as it plays, I'm hearing what you're saying to some degree. And if I'm captivated by anything, one, two words, then I'm rewinding and trying to figure out piece by piece what's being said in the song.
Well, that's interesting, and that kind of leads us into this next one. I want to phrase this correctly. What was the first sound system event that you ever attended?
The first sound system event?
Yeah.
Wow. First sound system event. Oh.
It's a hard question because it's taking you back before the rave, and I'm talking like, generator in a parking lot or something,
Yeah, brother. Like, I would, okay, for some reason I would have to say sound event. When we used to get together, the family, with, like...
Caddy, your sound's kind of cutting out. Hold on, buddy. I hate to cut you off, but we're kind of getting some bad sound. Is there anything that you can do? Have you moved?
Okay. How about now?
There you go.
Okay. It would be a family type event where, you and the family are having like a get-together. And there used to be a family that had a system in their basement. So when we're doing the get-togethers, a lot of times it would be at that location. That would be one. That was like the real introduction to the whole thing, right? And then I would have to say, wow, getting involved in sound system. I was a part of a sound system called Sunshine. It was a big sound system, and actually, I think they're actually still around now. They don't play with the big system the way they used to before. It used to be a mobile system that used to play from location to location.
Sure.
Now they have an equipment rental on Eglinton. And it's actually called Sunshine, too.
I know the place
Sunshine.
You're talking about. I know the rental place.
Right. Okay, well, the owner of that rental used to have a sound system in his basement. And on the weekends, it would be packed up into a truck and moved to wherever the location was. And they would have events. That was my real first introduction.
How important would you say the sound system culture was for the birth of our rave culture?
Say that?
how important, like, what influences do you think that the sound system days or the sound system culture had on what Toronto then had as the rave culture? Like, do you think it had a heavy influence?
100.
Yeah, of course.
100%. 100%. Because let's put it this way. Everything starts from what you're doing past, right? And then once you leave,
Oh, hold on, you're cutting out there. Hello.
Yeah, I hear. Can you hear me?
I hear you now. Sorry, Caddy. You take it back a little and tell us what you were saying there.
Hold 1 second. Can you still hear me?
Oh yeah, now I can hear you. Real loud.
Okay. It would start at the home first, and then you would get out, and it would be a sound system, right? And then the sound system thing got really, really popular, and the rave scene basically came from that.
Well, that's the interesting thing. Like, I hear a lot of the MCs and stuff came from the sound system days. When you hear a lot of the reggae style MCing, it's sound system culture kind of bleeding into jungle music. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, well, okay. It started out like this. Let's say it started in Jamaica, in the West Indies, with the sound system, right? And then, let's say you have a family or a set of families, a number of families migrate and they go to different places, right? Some are in America, some are in Canada, some are in England, and so on, right? Now, in England, they're into the type of music that they were into in England, and then things progress until they got their breakbeat. They turned the breakbeat into jungle, and then with the jungle, they added the vocals and the samples of the artists that we're familiar with back home, right? There you have it.
That's what we have. We have these people who have learned something, moved somewhere else, and then mixed it with something that was happening there.
Correct. Because for me, when I was first introduced to the rave scene here in Canada, when I heard all the music that I was listening to in the raves that I was at, it was like, whoa, okay, I'm ahead of everybody else because I know the actual songs that they took the samples from.
Well, that's actually, just in one of my recent interviews, Virgo Dawn pointed out to me that the Stevie chant, the Junglist Are You Ready, is from, I forget the artist, but he said, "Me say people, are you ready?" And he's like, yeah, it's an old
that's Papazuki.
Papazuki, there you go. So
yeah.
I didn't know that though until a few weeks ago when he told me that. And
yeah.
Well, and the thing, okay, so that begs the question: did you have any of the top MCs, let's say the Navigators, the Reggae Twins, any of those guys kind of pull you aside and say, "Hey, Caddy, this is nothing more than sound system days. Don't even try and reinvent the wheel. Just do what you did in the sound system days"? Or did you just pick that all up yourself?
Okay, let me tell you exactly what happened with me. Fortunately, when I was coming into the whole rave scene, I was at an R&B, hip hop, and reggae party during Caravana, and a drum and bass promoter was passing by the club that I was in and heard the commotion that was going on in the club because my DJ was playing to a packed house of mainly Americans. And Americans, when they're partying, they don't know how to act, right? They just go complete, like, we're out to party, we're going to party, right? Mm-hmm. So he's passing by, he hears the activity and the promotion going on inside, and he comes into the club. He's observing what's taking place, and then he approaches me, explains to me what he does, and introduces me to this. So when I had the opportunity to speak to him, I said, well, okay, what are you expecting of me? What do you want me to do? He says, whatever you do when you're at your type of party, that's what we want you to do here. So at this point, I'm hosting this party, but I also, leading up to this party, and in my life, I'm a live performer. I'm a dance hall performer, right? Mm-hmm. So I said, well, okay, well, like I'm a performer, right? He says, okay, well, let me hear what you do. So I asked my DJ to play some tracks. He plays some instrumental tracks, and then I do my live thing. Because at this point, we were just playing the tracks, and I was just doing the hosting, toasting, and, bigging up who is this and that and such and such and so on and so forth. So when he heard what I actually do, he said, that's what I want you to do. When you don't hear any vocals at this jam, that's what I want you to do. So for me now, the first time I walk into a rave, the system is so big, it's so loud, bass line's rolling, I don't know the tracks, so all I hear is bass line, so I didn't hear no vocals, so I chat all night over every single vocal. Didn't know that there were vocals being played.
I remember that aspect of your story. But here's the thing, Caddy. So you learned a little on your own, but I guess I was bluntly told to you that it was just a transition from your dance hall character into the rave. You didn't really have to be taken into account. Go ahead.
For me, honestly, there wasn't a transition. All I did was do what I normally do. It wasn't until later on, right, that I was introduced to the tapes and having, people like Dr. No, El Natural, people like Lush, Marcus, Mystical, all the people that I met when I came to my first rave, they all took the time to say, well, okay, do this, do that. I'm listening to the tapes now. I'm hearing people like Hyper D. I'm listening to Fearless and so on and so forth. And then actually meeting these people when the events are being, they're having the raves, and I'm a part of the raves now. I'm going to the raves and so on and so forth. That's how I picked up what I have now gravitated to be doing now. But when I first came in, I had no knowledge of what I was supposed to be doing. I just did what I was told. When I don't hear any vocals, go off.
Well, and it's amazing because when you do, I can tell that you're really into the music, that you're feeling it, and I love some of your freestyles. They're my favorite Caddy moments. With that, I got to ask you, like, when you're formulating lyrics, how do you do it? Like, how does it sound in your head? Do you have words first, or is it just noises and like syllables? Like, how does?
It's really funny because when I started to get into the music thing as a youth, right, it was all freestyle for me. I never used to write anything down. It was only after I started rolling with a friend of mine that was, he was from England actually, right? And he was a pen and paper man. So he would do a lot of writing, and that's where I actually started to do some writing. But for me, it's more, when the music is playing, whatever I'm feeling at that moment, I can translate that and articulate it in words, and it's like a quick thing that happens right at the spur of the moment. Like I can be standing here, see somebody do something, and then transfer it into lyrics.
Oh, I gotta ask then. That I'm sorry if I cut you off, but it just reminds me of one of my most famous Caddy lyrics, Sound Clash 1, where you just decided out of nowhere to do the ba ba da da ba ba da ba da. Do you remember that? Yeah. Honestly, my friends and I played that tape, and just that moment over and over again. We used to drive up and sing it to each other as we pull into a parking space. Ba 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 ba, and then at the end, ba da. Junglist, on the junglist, man. That's one of the greatest things. Did you write that, or was that spur of the moment?
Absolutely nothing written there, my friend. That was just a spur of the moment. Like, that might have been a melody from something that I wouldn't actually sing the lyrics to, but I knew the melody of whatever it was that was being sung, so I could just kind of scat that. And then Dr. No was famous for doing things like that.
Was he?
Yes.
I need to talk to him.
Say it again?
I said I need to talk to him.
Yeah, he. Let me tell you something. If you ever get the opportunity to speak to Dr. No, shut everything else down and just make it a 2-hour special.
Hey, if I could get 2 hours from these people, I'd do 2 hours every time I talk to you guys. It's not me, it's them. I would love to talk to anyone for 2 hours. Like, some of the best episodes we've had, I think, are the 3-4 hour ones, but it turns into 2 episodes. And you really get to know the artist because we go into these in-depth conversations. And Dr. No's a legend. I don't know him as a person. I just know his name.
Right.
So, to my listeners, if anyone could put me in contact with Dr. No, that would be great. If he's willing to share his story, because yeah, he's one of the pioneers and one of the people, the foundations of our scene, right?
Well, you could almost say, and I don't want to say this as a quote and be completely incorrect, but if I'm wrong, if there were 4 people that were the people that built the scene from the ground up, he would be one of those 4 people, I would say.
Well, and you know what? We're going to get to a question that's going to allow you to pick those 4. So let's not do that yet. We're gonna get there. I don't think we're there yet, are we? No, we're not there yet. So the next question I was going to ask you is, I've never heard an album from you. Can we expect an album from MC Caddy Cad now or ever?
To be honest, I really have no idea. That the next day would be the determining factor of that, because I'm not a musician because how should I put this? I'm not a musician because I'm a musician. This was a hobby. This is just something I like to do, and it just ended up becoming what it's become. It's not something that I get up and say, well, okay, I'm going to be number one. I'm going to be a superstar. I'm going to be a recording artist. I'm going to fly around the world doing this. It was never like that. It just happened. I like to talk, and from I was very small, I was gifted with the ability to communicate, and I listen a lot. So then whenever I had the opportunity to actually open up and release some of what I was thinking, fortunately, I was blessed with the ability to articulate well. And then it just turned into me getting into the music, and being into the music, it ended up that I became a mic person.
I get you.
And
So your articulation is bar none, but it's your voice as well, Caddy. You have a very predominant voice that, what do they say, the smooth and luxurious ride of the Caddy Cat, right?
Oh, you know about that, do you?
Oh, of course I know about that. But no, in all honesty, what I would say is it lends credence to your legacy, and it gives people a way to remember you. Like, we're all inevitably going to go one day, and what are we going to be remembered for? And I've got acapellas of you that I just feel blessed to have, because I can do anything with that, and I can let people hear these bars that Caddy Cat has in any style of music to kind of blend it to their ear. And I think that's what's important about getting you in the studio, and if not laying down a whole CD, at least laying down some more recorded bars so that people can play with it and spread your sound, because you're influential too. Like, you influenced me, and I'm sure you influenced many others. So I would like to see your legacy live.
Well, thank you for that compliment, and to anybody else that I may possibly have influenced, I'm happy that I may have done so, and I hope you continue to, because what it is really, it's a baton. And this is a relay. And when I'm done, I should be passing it on to somebody else, and in the meantime, I should be preparing those that are to come to take that baton and continue the relay.
Well, and here's one thing I've said even to my fellow MCs, Z and A2 and stuff. These guys have lyrical skill that I don't possess. You know what I mean? I've said I have a very powerful voice, but I just can't keep up with these guys on a lyrical level. I think I can command a crowd by just speaking at times, but I just can't do an hour. Like, I would love to somehow maybe learn to do what those guys do, and maybe mentor more from a guy like yourself so I can grow as an artist. And we'll see what the next 2 or 3 years could hold for me on the microphone.
Well, let me tell you this, and this is something that can easily be shared across the nation, across the world, and anywhere that what we do is even a seed. It's not always about being lyrical, right? The lyrics are basically your tools. But there's another thing that also is a very strong part and a very important part of that, right? It's your tool kit. It's the bag that you carry your lyrics in, and that is the hosting. you, with few lyrics, your ability to command the crowd and to communicate to the people and get them in a vibe leads you into when you want to drop a lyric in. And then you drop your lyric in, and then you proceed to host once again, right? Now, your DJ is going to love you for that. The crowd ties into the DJ, and the crowd will love you for that. And you will have the balance of both. Some people that are lyricists can't command the crowd, but they could kill you. They could make 1 million records, but they're horrible live, right?
Yep.
Now, A2, Z,
White Wolf. He's another
White Wolf.
lyrical.
No, you know what? I'm not even going to say White Wolf, because White Wolf is lyrical, but he's lyrical in a different sense because he's a hip-hop rapper that's in drum and bass now as well.
Sure.
Right?
Sure, yeah.
So I mean more straight on
Jungle
drum and bass MCs, right? You see A2 and Z right now,
Mm-hmm.
they have the what's going on in the UK type of lyrical flow, and then they also have the ability to be able to communicate without the lyricism because they have that confidence and they have that presence.
You know, one thing
Right.
I want to dig in on the word confidence, because going back to the ba ba da da ba ba da, as much as we laugh about it, that takes a lot of confidence, and it takes the ability to just let yourself go in the music. And I think that's what restrains a lot of people, is that they're maybe shy or they're feeling constricted, and they don't just let themselves go. And that's a big thing that comes with confidence, right?
Well, remember this. Music, when it's being played, when you're listening to it, your brain is like a DJ. It's like a mixer. So you can hear a song when you're in a party, and it leads you to hearing something else that you know could melodically go along with that. And then remember, my history is I'm coming from somewhere completely different than the rave scene. So when I was in that rave that night, and at that moment, when you heard me come out with that melody, I was hearing that melody in my head that would be able to mix in to what was going on at that moment. That's the reason why that happened. And then my ability to be just spontaneous, because I'm not scared. I'll just do it if I feel like doing it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And it just happened in this particular case that it worked.
Oh, it always works, Caddy. I've heard you say some of the funniest things, and I know you didn't mean to say them. You used to say things like, it's like fries and gravy. I remember that was one of your lines. It's like fries and gravy. I was like, he's talking fries and gravy. How's it like fries and gravy? It's like,
but it's true though. It's true though. The music, right, would be like the fries, and the crowd that's enjoying it would be like the gravy.
Is that what it was?
Result.
Is that what
What's that?
Is that what it meant?
Yeah.
I remember you say the other one I remember was you big up the speakers. There's a lot of them. I'll never forget that. Bigging up the speakers. There's lots of them. I was like, that's awesome.
Well,
there's lots of speakers. Big them up.
Think about this now. You're in a club, not like Luxor, but an actual club, right?
Sure.
They may have 1 or 2 columns of speakers, maybe not even so many. Maybe they have a bass bin over here and a bass bin over there, a top up there, a top up there, right?
Yeah.
When we were at Luxor and when we're at raves, you know what the stack of speakers looks like. There's like, 15, 16 bass bins.
Yeah, didn't one fall on a girl or something? Don't you remember? Like a speaker fell on someone, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, we've had some raves that some incidents have happened that it's like, like because the place is so full and the music is pumping the way that it's pumping, the actual location, it's actually like a speaker box.
I know what you mean. You drive by and you can feel the bass in your car.
Oh yeah,
To be honest, I've had to tell people not to put their drinks down on the bar because the bass is so much that it'll actually knock your drink off the bar. Like, do not put your drinks down.
How many times have you put your drink down on the speaker itself, on the speaker cabinet, and you turn around for a second, and you just happen to turn around in time to see it dancing right to the edge? You just catch it before it hits the floor.
I have to say I've been hit enough that I don't make that mistake anymore. But definitely seen what you're talking about. Okay, here, I gotta ask you this. Do you have any like specific plans, any traveling, any touring, any big shows planned for 2019?
Wow. I'm not booked for anything, and I really don't have anything planned to say I'm going to be going here or going there or anywhere else to do anything in music.
Okay.
No, really, no.
Caddy's staying local, guys. Get him booked for every Friday, Saturday, Sunday party there is. And have you had a chance to go out to Cambridge yet?
You know what? I believe it was 2 weeks ago. I had the pleasure of going up to Cambridge.
For Groove Rider?
Yes.
Did you actually host the set?
No, I'm glad I didn't host the set.
Oh.
Because I was able to be a spectator and to enjoy it like everybody else was enjoying it. When you're on the mic, you're working. And even though we're having fun when we're working at this point, you can't absorb really what's going on around you because you're focused on the DJ, the music, and the crowd and trying to tie everything together. At this point, I was doing none of that. I had a few people that actually asked me if I would, am I going to go on tonight? I said, no, I'm just like you tonight. I'm enjoying this. The system is nice. The atmosphere is nice. The location is correct. And the people that are in there make it, as it's called, VIP.
It is.
So big ups to Brian Brazine and the whole...
Peaceful entertainment. Peaceful entertainment.
Peaceful entertainment crew, for real.
Soldier Sessions. I gotta say though, like, I was supposed to be there. I wasn't able to go because I didn't trust my car. I didn't have winter tires on. One of my lights was out, and it was a horrible blizzard that night. And I was like, driving out in Cambridge, there's no street lights. It's very dark out there. I just didn't feel comfortable doing it. How did you get out there? Like, were you in a sled?
Well, you could have called it a sled, but I went up there with Z. And who along with Z? I was with Z and Chill Will.
Cool.
And trust me, it was worth the drive to Cambridge. It was a miserable night, but that even made it more worth getting up there, because when we got up there and got into the club, it was as if we had left Canada and left the winter and we went to some tropical place because the vibe was just so warm.
I bet, man. I'm going to regret that one, I'm sure, in like years when... Because obviously when I get to go out to these, I'm blessed in getting to interview most of the artists when I get out there, because not one of them has said, no, I won't do an interview. And
right.
Groove Rider's not necessarily the easiest guy to get a hold of, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to reach him now. So it does kind of suck, but I'm glad to hear you had fun, and I'd like to see some tour dates for 2019. So guys, contact Caddy. If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to reach you for bookings?
To tell you the truth right now, because I'm a part of the Create family, that would be the easiest way and the best way to do it. Like just Z and Create DMB in the 6.
Create DMB in the 6. And we'll leave those below. Okay, so here's the fun one where you were talking about the 4 faces. So I don't know if you've heard this question, but if you could create 4 faces, like Mount Rushmore?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say we're making a Mount Rushmore for drum and bass. Who would the 4 faces be?
Wow. The 4th, oh my goodness. Dude, that's a rough one.
It's fun. Wow. Just have fun with it. Some guys like, IC3 for instance. Man, I'm not answering that. I don't need to be held. I'm like, who do you think's listening to my show that's going to call you later tonight and be like, how could you not name me?
No, you know what? If you've actually encountered that block already, then I'm probably another one that's going to say the same thing. Because, no, you know why? Let me tell you what.
Go ahead.
If you said make a Mount Rushmore for a number of different locations, that might be a different ballgame.
So you're saying, like, for instance, I divided into 4 DJs, 4 producers, 4 MCs, 4 promoters, 4... like we divided into those kind of subgenres, then you would do it?
No, not even necessarily like that. What I would more say would be, you would make it something like, okay, 4 from the UK, 4 say from Canada, 4 from the USA, 4 for different locations.
Okay,
right?
you know what? That brings up a very interesting question. Then, do you think if you were to create a Mount Rushmore for drum and bass, there would be anybody from Canada or America that you would put in front of any UK MC any UK artist?
Okay, that's where you get your problem now. Okay, because the UK is the birthplace of what we're doing right now pertaining to that. Okay, so before we can go outside of there, we're gonna deal with that situation, right? And then remember, there was a point where Canada, Toronto, not even just say Canada, but Toronto was the #1 destination outside of the UK for this music and this scene that we love and are upholding right now. Okay, so just think about it. We were so good that everybody in the UK came to Canada and came to Toronto. At least they had to come to Toronto. Because Toronto was.
When you say that, right away, I would want to know, like, for instance, Marcus Visionary, I would give a big kudos for that because he started bringing guys like that. Well, he created a lot of the parties that we went to that built the industry that we were able to then, I guess, economically pay for people from the UK to come over, and it could be supported by ticket sales, right? So it's not like it was one person listening to music decided to bring over a UK and then all of a sudden 5,000 people showed up. It was a process. So I would think for Canada at least, Marcus Visionary would definitely be one. Dr. No, you mentioned, would definitely be one.
Okay, let's look at it this way.
Go ahead.
Right? You have Marcus Visionary. You have Mystical Influence. You have Jungle PhD.
Yes.
You have Medicine Muffin. You have Malik X. You have Sniper. You have, like, we haven't even begun to crack the surface calling names.
Well, because here's the thing, we're talking roots at this point. Like, if you were to look at today's contributors, like, for instance, one person who I think gets mixed out is James Brown. He does a lot of stuff for our scene today, but he's not necessarily mentioned in the roots of the scene. But if I was to make a Mount Rushmore, if you will, for today's contributors versus who brought the scene to Toronto, those would also be two totally separate things, right?
That's correct. That's why I say to you, right? And because you said that you've asked this question of a few artists from the UK and they don't want to touch it, this is the reason why it even came into my mind that you'd have to open it up and break it down in a different manner. Like, you'd have to have 4 here, 4 here, 4 here, 4 here. Like, that Mount Rushmore, there would be more than one Mount Rushmore in that case, because there's some people you don't want to leave out, but then there's some people that you're rubbing. Like, for instance, I would have to say, you know, the people that are doing their thing right now would come to mind for the younger generation. They don't know they know Marcus, but they haven't seen Mystical that frequently. So a lot of these young youths nowadays that are in the scene, they don't know who Mystical is. They don't know they absolutely don't know who Dr. No is.
They don't know Dr. No, but the reason why they know Mystical, and I'll tell you why, is because of, do you remember this one? Okay, are you ready for the DJ Mystical, the DJ Marcus, the Skibba D, and the MC Det? Okay. That will forever be a legendary set that'll put your name, Mystical, Marcus, Skibba, and Det on the map in Toronto, jungle drum and bass history. Do you know the set I'm talking about, the Throwdown Party, right?
Okay, but here's the joke about that now. If I was doing that Mount Rushmore, I wouldn't be one of the people that I would have put on it.
Well, that's because you're a humble individual.
Well, not even because I'm humble, because when I think of the question that you're asking me, it takes me out of my time and it brings me into thinking about the people that made it. It's when you look at Mount Rushmore, how long ago was Mount Rushmore put up?
I have no idea. I would say 1950s.
Eons ago.
It wasn't that long ago because it's got the president's faces, so it can't be too long ago. Let me see. I can check. When was Rushmore made? 1941, Caddy.
1941?
Yeah.
Okay. Now you just think about it. 1941, right? That was when they made it. But that was not when the faces that they put up there were doing whatever they were doing to have them say that these are the faces that should go up there.
No, you're right. That's true. They also didn't pick the founding fathers. You know, the specific presidents that they chose. They didn't put, Thomas Jefferson or Benjamin Franklin or, you know what I mean? Who a lot of people will say are the foundations of America. They picked their presidents. So,
right.
Even in that, I think that there would be people who would argue which faces belong on Mount Rushmore versus the ones that are actually there. You know what I mean?
That's always going to be a case of conversation. But the point of the matter is, the people that made Mount Rushmore could have put their faces up there too.
You're right, and I get what you mean profoundly about that. I think, you know what, the question itself is ill-important. It's these dialogues that I love to have because it gets you to think on all these levels. I love that you dug in and you do look to the roots, and you go, well, the roots were led to this, and then that made this progress, so who can you say is more important? Whose face really belongs? You should just remember them all, and encapsulate them all in maybe one big giant face.
Okay. Take this into consideration. You know the fallen soldiers. You know the monument that they have in the United States for all the people that passed in World War this and World War that?
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
Okay. If they were to try and say have a Mount Rushmore for those people, they wouldn't be able to have enough space or find enough rock to carve all those faces in. So what did they do? Each name etched in marble. Mm-hmm. How many names are up on those memorials? Countless.
Tens of thousands.
Not to mention the ones that they didn't even put up there.
Yeah. You're right.
Right?
Yeah, you're right. I hope that I would be one of the names that gets up there. I would hope that my legacy would get remembered.
Well, you see, you're doing something that will have your legacy remembered because you're doing what you're doing right now with people like myself and the other entertainers and artists and producers and who's who or whatever it may be that you interview.
Yeah.
So you're already setting your own legacy. Even if there's no Mount Rushmore with you up there, somebody will hear your voice and somebody will eventually look your name up to see what the face looks like that goes with the voice because of what you're doing right now.
That's funny. I don't even think of that. When I went looking for your picture, I Googled your name and the first thing that came up was your picture from my podcast.
You see what I'm telling you?
I was like, oh, look, it's me. But yeah, that's kind of flattering. It's obviously not my motivation, but I obviously would not want my legacy to die. That's why we do what we do, is in hopes that someone like you say, well, you can pass that baton and grow on what we've started, right?
Well, if you think about it, right, when you started doing what you're now doing, you didn't start it thinking that it was going to do what it's doing. You started it because you just wanted to do something that was different, but also that you could help others to either get to know or get to understand what our scene is about, and that's exactly what you're doing.
No, and you're totally right, Caddy. When I did this, I thought it was going to be a 1, maybe 2 episode thing. I'd talk to Marcus, maybe I'd talk to you, and we'd get to the bottom. When I started it, it was, what's the difference between jungle and drum and bass? And it came, we got to the bottom of that in 2 episodes, and there were, tons of people who watched it said, I'd love to tell my version of what you just talked about. And here we are today, a year and a bit later, and I don't see any end in sight. I've got lots of people to talk to and lots of fresh material to listen to, and I'm enjoying it. It's a labor of love, really, but I'm enjoying these discussions. Okay, one final question. This is a fun one, and I hope you'll answer it. Who would win in a fight between Muhammad Ali and Mike Tyson, both in their prime?
Wow, that's another one. That one is a tough one because I'm going to tell you something. They both are specialists in what they specialize in. Mike Tyson in his prime that's what he brought to the ring. Plus, when he first came in, and he was being mentored by Customado, he was it. He was what you want in a fighter. Very strong, very dedicated, and very well schooled. Now, on the other hand, Muhammad Ali is a showman, one. Two, he is very, very, very meticulous at making people step out of themselves by the things that he would say leading up to the fight and so on. But if I had to really think about that and say, so, okay, what I think I would do is I would look at it like this. The very first time Muhammad Ali fought Joe Frazier, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
The very first time Muhammad Ali fought Joe Frazier, he lost to Joe Frazier. He had not too long come out of jail, and he wasn't in the type of condition that he should have been in. Plus, I don't really think he took Joe Frazier as seriously as he should have. But with that being said, Joe Frazier reminded me a lot of Mike Tyson at that time. And the very first fight they had, Muhammad Ali lost. But upon them fighting a second time, he had a better idea of what he had to do. He knew that he couldn't face Joe Frazier fist for fist because Joe Frazier was much more
powerful.
Much of a he was like a tank too, right? So what he had to do was stick and move. At the end of the fight, he knew he was in a fight. It wasn't boxing like we have boxing today. Those two actually were fighting.
Wasn't that the rope and dope fight?
The rope-a-dope fight, no. If I remember correctly, the rope-a-dope fight was the one with George Foreman.
Oh, okay.
Where George Foreman had defeated Joe Frazier to get the title, and then he fought Muhammad Ali thereafter.
I just remember you wear him out for 12 rounds. That's and that's what I would think. Like, just to cut you off for a second, is I would think that if Muhammad Ali could take it 12 rounds, he could win in a decision. But if Mike could get in there and avoid the reach, he could get one punch on Ali's jaw and he'd be done.
Well, there's another thing that you have to look at as well, too, right? You see, the fighters of old were much more conditioned than the fighters of today.
Stamina,
right?
I mean.
In terms of stamina, but as well, you see, there's a lot of technology in fighting now. Where back in the day, it was raw street. So, for instance, you and me, right, just on a day-to-day, walking up and down on the street, our passion for survival, if we decided to turn into boxers, that's what would keep us going. So when you hit somebody and you knock them down, the passion to get up and continue to fight because of that thing that's inside of you, they had a lot of that back in the day. That's heart. Nowadays, it's more fashion, glitz, and glamour.
It's interesting you say that. I have a friend who's a UFC coach. He coaches Josiah. I forget his last name, but he's ranked number 12 in the world.
Okay.
But anyways, he told me one of the things they've noticed in UFC is you used to get a lot of technically trained fighters. Now you get a lot of daredevils. He goes, the average fighter 20 years ago was usually a mean, brute kind of guy you'd fight in a bar with. Nowadays, you get these guys who like to jump out of planes that want to get into UFC fighting. And they're thrill seekers, he said, more than brutes. And I found it interesting.
Well, just think of this, right? If if you have somebody who sits down and studies before they go into the ring, the chances of them winning the fight are heightened.
Sure.
Okay? If two people just walk into a ring and decide they're just going to start fighting, okay, it's like a street fight.
Mm-hmm.
They're balanced. But if one of those two people sits down and gets footage of the other one ahead of time and says, okay, this is his weakness, this is where I can defeat him, and this is where I know I'm stronger than him, so I stay away from this and I feed on this, you have a better chance of winning. And do remember, once again, as you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be a knockout. You can win by points.
That's what this guy wins by all the time. And it's interesting because then what you have is, like you were talking about street fighters, it's the fighters that are controlling the fight. But if we're talking the way you're talking right now, we're talking coaches controlling the fight. You're talking the coach is looking at his fighter, and he knows what his fighter is capable of, and he's looking at his opponent, and he knows where his opponent's weaknesses are, and he's using his fighter to exploit the opponent's weaknesses. So it's not up to the fighter to do that. It's up to the coach to tell the fighter what to do. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Parallel this then. Back in the day when UFC just started, right, there was a gentleman by the name of Horace Gracie.
Oh, of course, Horace Gracie.
Okay. Anybody who doesn't know the history, right, basically it would be something like this. The majority of the fighters that he was led to face were more people that were brawn and brute strength. He was from a discipline, right? I forget what the name of his what's the name of his discipline again? I forget the name of it. But anyway, his discipline taught him to observe and take everything step by step. You take what they give you and use it to defeat them.
Jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu, correct. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So with that, a couple of the guys that he had to fight were like twice his size, with muscles all over the place in the whole 9 yards. He wasn't a muscular dude. I don't even think he had a six-pack. But what he did have was a method of operation that was to perfection. Okay, and another thing, his will to not be defeated was unmatched.
That's the truth. Well, here, I just want to bring it back to the original question to see if we can get an answer from you. So who would win, Tyson, Ali? Who do you give it to? No biting.
Okay, I'm going to answer that in two parts.
Go ahead.
Who I would like to win would be Muhammad Ali. Who may win might be Mike Tyson. Because if Mike Tyson had the opportunity to land, like you see the way that Muhammad Ali does the rope-a-dope with the fighters that he was doing it with?
Yep. The duck.
I don't think he would have that kind of success with Mike Tyson. If Mike gets you in a corner, because you have to understand something with Mike Tyson too. Mike Tyson wasn't just all muscle and brawn. He was a man that sat down and studied boxing from every fighter that there was ever footage of. He went back from that far and studied right up. So he knew boxing like somebody, like a professor knows his particular thing that he's teaching.
Here's the thing. I've had that discussion with people before. I disagree in a sense where I don't think Mike Tyson was very technically sound. I find him to be a one-punch monster, and I found that a lot of the people he fought in his early career, they were all jobbers. They were these, like, guys you've never heard of that stepped in the ring to get knocked out by Mike Tyson. And anytime he fought somebody like a Riddick Bowe or a Sugar Ray or something, it was a real fight. Like, it wasn't like all those other jobber fights. And I didn't find him to be, I guess, as intellectual or as intelligent as you would need to be, in my mind, one of the greatest ever.
Okay, let me bring you back to something. Cus D'Amato. When Mike Tyson was fighting under Cus D'Amato, Cus D'Amato didn't train Mike Tyson like, you're the best.
Is that the old man?
Yes.
Okay, I know who you're talking about.
Okay. When Customato trained Mike Tyson, he did not train Mike Tyson and tell Mike Tyson, "You're the best." He told Mike Tyson, and he trained Mike Tyson for every fight like it was the first fight and the last fight. When Mike Tyson lost Customato and he was left in the hands and the good care of Don King,
Yeah.
he started to believe his hype. And I will tell you this, no matter how good you are, when you start telling yourself you're the greatest and nobody else hasn't put you on that pedestal, you're headed for a loss.
There's nowhere to go but down, right?
Exactly. Because let me tell you something. Not only is it what you do in the ring because of what you've prepared and trained for, it's also the love that you have and what you've done leading up to the fight. You see, when you walk into the ring and the crowd is for you, somebody will knock you down, and because of the will that you have with the backing of all these people, they help you to get up.
That's true. When you hear everyone chanting your name and you hear,
Yes.
I can imagine what that's like.
I can tell you something. When you get knocked out, you're no longer in any zone. You're out. Okay? When you're in that moment of just being out there somewhere, because you don't know where you are, if there's people chanting your name, that will bring you back into the AM. The lights come on again. Now you're starting to, the cobwebs are clearing up. The clouds are moving away. You can actually see what's going on. Now you're listening to all these people cheering your name and encouraging you to get up. So you get up. If you don't have that, if you yourself just don't naturally have that heart, you're out for the count.
I hear you. And you can't teach that.
You can't teach that. Now, remember this. Even as an MC then, if you walk around swearing that you're the best and you have what you need to be the best, you're okay. But you see, as soon as you start to lose your skills, if you don't have love, you're going down like a Titanic.
There's a saying, I think, of be humble or be humbled.
That's correct. Exactly. 1,000,000%. Not even 100.
I love it. Well, hey, I'm going to sign off for my listeners, but I want to talk to you a little bit more, so stay on the phone with me, okay, Caddy?
No doubt, my brother.
All right, there he was. I hope you guys enjoyed the chat as much as I did. You know him, MC Caddy Cat. We're going to have links below if you want to get in contact with the man. And Google him. Lots of great sets to listen to. And 2019, I'm sure, will bring many more. As always, guys, thanks for tuning in. And until next time, peace out.